The next speaker is a great friend. And I want to say, we talk all the time, and she and our, Chris Gross is her husband. I'm going to bring up here in a second Josephine Gross. But we speak literally multiple times every week. And she is one of the most gracious, giving, hardworking women in network marketing who truly does not get all the accolades that she deserves. Because I want you to understand, this woman and her husband Chris, they are the co-founders of this magazine, Networking Times. For over 10 years, this magazine has served as the premier publication in our network marketing profession. I want you to understand, you are not a network marketing professional if you are not subscribing to this magazine. It is co-authored by people within our profession. People can give in articles. You cannot get this information for this price anywhere else in the world. It is a phenomenal magazine. You definitely need to go to the back and subscribe. I promise you, the information you will learn in here is invaluable, and they've done so much to raise up the credibility of our profession. This month is the Networking Times, is the women's edition. You know, we have got so many people. Amy Gleave is in here. I know there's a lot of contributors in here that have actually contributed to this. You know, we've got people like Sarah Robbins who's in here who've contributed to this. We've got Shanita Panaputra, who I'm going to introduce later on, who's contributed to this. But the speakers that we have here today come from Networking University. How do you think it would be cool if you could get educational credits for learning how to improve and become a better network marketing professional? You think that would be pretty cool, add credibility? Networking University has been doing that for years, and so many of the faculty here are because of Chris and Josephine Gross. I want to tell you that Josephine Gross is a lady who is absolutely committed to raising up our profession. She is absolutely committed to sharing the global perspective of what network marketing has done. They are committed to a new vision of what we can do together, the Association of Network Marketing Professionals. Please get on your feet and help me bring up on stage a true friend to our profession for over a decade, Josephine Gross.
Hello everybody. So good to see so many friends in the room. Hey, isn't Sandy Botkin amazing at showing us how you got to be out of your mind to not have a home-based business, even if it's just a side business? Well, more and more people around the world are understanding that. That's why we are seeing a global rise of entrepreneurship. And of course, that bodes very well for the future of network marketing. But before I dive into my topic, I would like to tell you a little bit about where I came from. I'll see if I can make this work. Here you go. All right. So if you wonder about my accent, it's hard to identify because in my country we speak many different languages. I come from a small country called Belgium. It's squeezed between France and the Netherlands. Is that good? Yeah. And the reason I'm telling you this is when I lived in Belgium, well, Belgium is a wonderful country. There is only one thing that's not so good about it, is the climate. It rains a lot. It rains and the sky is gray. In November, sometimes we have gray sky. For 6 weeks, you don't see blue in the sky. And I grew up in the city center. My dad had a store downstairs. We lived upstairs. And I distinctly remember at age around 10, looking over the rooftops, seeing the rain drizzle down, and dreaming of sunshine and palm trees. Now, that was nothing unusual because in Belgium, most Belgians think the whole year long about the summer when they're going to drive down to Spain or to Italy for a summer vacation to enjoy the beautiful climate. Well, this may be the first sign of the entrepreneurial streak in me. When I was 10 years old, I decided that this kind of deferred life plan was not going to work for me. I said, why don't we just move to a country with a nicer climate? Sure enough, the universe took note of my desire. In my mid-20s, in my early 20s, I met an American in my home country who invited me to visit. He was living in California. I loved it there, loved the beautiful nature, space, climate. I went first as a tourist, then I wanted to stay longer, so I had to become a student. I checked around the community colleges in the neighborhood, and I found out you have to pay to go to school. In Belgium, education is free. So my friend told me, well, there is a local university here, and for people like you, they have something it's called a financial aid department. So I was working at an Italian restaurant at the time, and so I said, oh, that's a good idea. So I got the paperwork. I remember filling out the paperwork at the corner of a table a few days before the deadline. I handed it in. Sure enough, a couple of months later, the chair of the department that I applied for gave me a call and said, hey, we have a $100,000 scholarship for you. Do you accept? So I was very surprised. I said, let me think about it for a few days. So I went into work that day, and I told my colleagues, and they were like so amazed. And I said, what? And he said, well, you have no idea how hard it is to get into Stanford, let alone get a scholarship. So, to this day, when people ask me how I got into Stanford, all I can say is, I had no idea it was hard to get in. So this story told me that we do create our reality with our thoughts and our beliefs. And so I had a great time at Stanford, graduated. I did some research projects after that led me to live in different parts of the world. And in my mid-30s, I moved back to the Bay Area. I was in between jobs, and that's where I got introduced to network marketing. So my friend knew I was in between jobs, and so she sent me a package in the mail with some product materials and some things about the opportunity. And I started reading that, and maybe it's because I'm European, I'm very critical minded. I felt very skeptical. I told my friend, of course this company is going to tell you it's a great product, it's a great opportunity, but is there any third-party, neutral information about this business that says that this is legitimate? And most importantly, that would show me how I can do it. And she didn't know too much. She was new to the profession. And she said, why don't you come over to my house next week, next Thursday? I'll have my upline there, and you can ask all the questions. So I just liked this friend. I didn't think much about the business anymore, but I just went to her house for lunch. And I met her upline. And this lady happened to be also, also a Stanford alum. So we hit it off immediately, and when she talked to me about her lifestyle and her values and her life purpose and how that tied into her business, I discovered there was something there that I could learn from her that I had not learned in all my years of academics, 10 years of academics. So without knowing much about the product or even having no intention of doing the business, I just wanted to hang out with her. So I joined her team, plunked down my credit card, bought the starter kit, etc. So when I explained to her my desire to learn, she recommended some books to me. This was 15 years ago. So the books were Being the Best You Can Be in MLM. Anyone read that book? John Kalanch. And The Greatest Networker in the World by John Milton Fogg. And she said, there is one more thing you need to do. You need to subscribe to the Journal of Professional Networkers. And back then it was called the Upline Journal. Now, has anyone been in the business long enough to remember the Upline Journal? Raise your hand. Few of us. So of course, being a good student, I subscribed. And with my starter kit came a ticket to attend the first All-Star training, which I attended onto the training. And after the training, I went to the exhibitor area, and that's where I saw the Upline booth. Since I was still waiting for my subscription, I went over there, and that's where I met my husband, Chris. Chris then was the CEO of MLM Publishing, Inc., which was a publisher of Upline. And being the excellent recruiter that he was, he recruited me away from my business. Just kidding. We hit it off when I heard, he told me about the publishing company and the mission of the company to provide cutting-edge, world-class training tools for network marketing. That immediately got my interest. And some of the other things happened. I can summarize, after a brief but productive conversation, we decided to get married. That was 15 years ago. So, and I started working for Upline, so I never built a business, but I became an editor and the circulation manager for the next publication, Network Marketing Lifestyles, which then eventually evolved into Networking Times. The point of the story is that today I still do something that's from the perspective of that very first need that I had when I heard about the business and got involved, the need for third-party validation and third-party credibility. So that's still what we do today. So, that was a little bit about my story. So as I said, I have never built a network marketing business, so I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to share some stories and facts that hopefully will expand your thinking about the business. You know, do you agree that when you go about your business and you talk to a prospect, it's important how you feel, right? So Tony Robbins, he says, we move from state to story to strategy. So your state, your belief is extremely important. There's also this expression in our business where we say, in a sales conversation, it's not the best company or the best offer that wins, it's the person with the strongest belief is going to win. Okay? So by the end of my talk, hopefully you will have very strong, you will feel very proud and excited to be a network marketing professional. Now, would you agree that not everybody who starts feels that way? So we all, when building our business, you know, when going about our livelihood, we all like to feel part of some bigger movement, right? So we are building on our own financial freedom, but we also like to feel like we're making a difference in the world, right? So well, I'm going to show you that network marketing is not just about you, your team, your company, or even what's happening here in North America. I like to say network marketing is a global movement that's transforming lives of families everywhere around the world. And it does so by there are three driving factors for this. The first one is we provide economic opportunity. The second one is we are a business that empowers women. And the third one is we provide entrepreneurship education. So we're going to cover all three of them. The first one, we provide economic opportunity. Well, a couple of years ago, we interviewed an economist. His name is Vijay Eswaran, and he happens to be also the owner of a big network marketing company based in Malaysia. And the article was titled, How Network Marketing Will Save the World. And here's what he says. In the perspective of the global rise of entrepreneurship we are seeing, he says, with 6 billion people on this planet, 1/3 of that number being of the employable age, there is absolutely no way that any industry, be it mining, manufacturing, agriculture, anything, can fulfill 2 million jobs. So the population is growing so quickly, even if we create jobs, it's never going to catch up. He says by 2020, we're going to have at least 4 billion people looking for employment. And there is absolutely nothing out there that can fill the gap except network marketing. And you know how here in America we take it for granted. There's so much economic opportunity. It has always been that way. That's why so many immigrants moved here. I'm one of them, and you already heard of some other ones this morning. You'll hear about more. But this is especially important in developing countries where the population is growing so quickly that there is no way anyone can catch up with the jobs. Okay. So let's look a little bit at the size of this opportunity and who is taking advantage of it. And here's a good point for me to say hi from a good friend of mine who could not be here today, who would normally have gone a little bit more deeply into these numbers, and his name is Dr. Charles King. Anyone familiar with Dr. Charles King? You will see him listed in the program, but he could not make it today because he got injured and he was not allowed to travel. He hopes to be here next time. So, but he's the expert in these numbers, so we do this research together. The total volume of sales in network marketing is 154 billion. Now this is 35% up from 5 years ago. So it is a very healthy industry that's growing despite what's happening in the economy. Now if you look at how the total is divided over the different continents, the biggest region is Asia Pacific with 37%. And I'm very happy that we have this region very well represented here. After my talk, you're going to hear from Chanida and Mr. Kaneko and Keith Halls, who have built in these regions. So that's very good because it's the most important region for our business, Asia Pacific. Then we have US, Canada, 33%, Latin America, and Europe, Africa is considered one region because of the comparable size population, also just about similar, 15%. Let's see how many people are taking advantage of it. 91 million people are involved worldwide in direct sales or network marketing. And again, Asia Pacific is the major part, 51%. USA, Canada is 26%. And then Europe and Latin America is following. Billion-dollar markets, well, the US is the birth country for network marketing with the 30 billion, still number one. However, that number has not moved since 5 years ago. So it was 30 billion 5 years ago, it's 30 billion today. That means that other countries have grown a lot. So you see the next markets, the three next ones are in Asia, Japan, China, and Korea. Then we have South America is following, and then we have some European countries where the business is doing well also, and then Malaysia is very, very big. So those are our billion-dollar markets. Now here's an interesting thing that I would have never found out if it weren't that because of a talk I had, a telephone conversation I had with one of our customers at Networking Times. One guy keeps placing orders, and one day we Skype because I was kind of interested. He's from Bangladesh. Okay, so I was kind of interested, how is the business going in Bangladesh? How does it work there? So we have this conversation, and he said, he communicates to me there is a huge interest in network marketing. I'm like, yeah? Well, we know it as one of the poorest countries in the world, so I'm really intrigued. So he says, go to Google Trends. Does anyone know that tool, Google Trends? Okay, it's where you can do a search for who is searching for certain keywords, okay? I redid this because I redo this every time I look at these numbers because I can't believe it. But the people, the country that's searching most for the word MLM, look at the list there. The first country, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia, India, developing countries. You see that? And then the second word that I always check is network marketing. Well, it's just a question of terminology to just use a different word in Africa, but it's Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, and then more Asia Pacific, etc. So I thought that was very surprising. That's really where people are looking the most for our opportunity. Okay? So why is network marketing booming in the developing world? Well, obviously they have a very fast-growing population, and they have especially they have a middle class that's growing very, very quickly. There is a lot of youth unemployment, as we said. There's an extreme hunger for opportunity. There is a networking culture. In most developing countries, people are not so individualistic as we are. When they find something good, they are morally obliged to share it with people. So talking to your friends and neighbors and family about your business is not a scary thing to do. You're supposed to do that. They have an extreme desire to learn. Many of the people now have access to education because of the internet, and they never, for generations, never had access to education. And then lastly, we'll talk about that in a minute, it's a business, we have a business that empowers women, and in a lot of developing countries, due to the culture and all that, women are still don't enjoy the same level of freedom and power as men, so our business really changes that. So now let me tell you a story of someone in one of these countries that really took advantage of the opportunity. Remember what was at the top of the searches for MLM? It was Indonesia. Okay, so this is Denny Hartoyo from Indonesia. To the left, you see him with his mom, where he used to live before he found network marketing. He was born in a family of catfish farmers. Okay? So Indonesia, I have to imagine, is the fourth most populated country in the world after China, US, and India. But It's a very beautiful country and has a lot of natural resources, but the population is growing so fast that there are a lot of economic problems. So in the mid-90s, his parents lost the farm and were completely destitute. And he was just finished high school. They didn't have money to send him to college. So he gets married. He didn't have money to live in his own place. So he moves in with his in-laws. No hope. Even, he says, even the thought of ever having a motorcycle was a far-fetched dream. So no hope for a future or anything. Until one day his brother gets involved in a network marketing company and presents it to Danny, and Danny is very, very skeptical because the economic situation in his country has attracted a lot of scams, and so he's very, let's see, but for 6 months his brother really takes him to meetings and shows it to him. So finally Danny decides he is going to join and build a network marketing business. Now, the only problem is he doesn't have money to buy the starter kit. It's completely unaffordable for him, like it was maybe equivalent of $150. So he asks his family if he can borrow some money. They say no. They say he's delusional, arrogant, there's going nowhere. So eventually he convinces his in-laws. His father-in-law gives him the television and to sell, so he gets some money from that. His mother-in-law gives him her necklace, which he turns into the pawn shop. Plus, in addition, he borrows some money from friends. After 2 months, he gets the money together to buy the starter kit. Okay? Now he doesn't know how to go prospect. He doesn't have even a bicycle. So what is he going to do? So let me read you a little excerpt of his story. Now, by the way, when you hear how hard it is for him to get the starter kit, do you imagine when Tuesday night comes around and he has a choice to watch the ball game or go to the meeting? Do you think he's going to know what to do? So he says, in the beginning, I didn't have any means of transportation, so every day I borrowed my neighbor's bicycle for prospecting. When I had to attend a meeting that was farther away, I borrowed my friend's motorcycle. I continued doing a lot of side jobs in order to pay for the gas. As I approached my friends and family, my offer to help them overcome poverty and create wealth was typically not well received. Afraid to change, most people resisted my ideas and accused me of being arrogant and delusional. It was one of the most difficult periods of my life. Yet this adversity is also what strengthens my belief and determination. Fortunately, Indonesia is a densely populated country, and thanks to the sheer number of people I approached, I eventually found a few who were ripe for the business. Once I had signed up a few business partners and started receiving a check, recruiting became more easy. Now I was living proof that the business worked. The number of prospects attending our meetings kept increasing. Listen to this. These days it's not unusual to have as many as 7,000 guests at my weekly opportunity meetings. They take place typically in an open field. And when a local organization starts to develop, we construct a building close to the main leader's home to be used for trainings and presentations. Danny and his brother Gita already lead one of their company's fastest growing organizations with many thousands of members in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan. And when asked how they are able to provide leadership for such a diverse team, Danny replies, "We keep directing our people to attend all events. We have one voice, one ship, one mission. We tell our team members to teach others about our system until everyone can duplicate what we have done. And at times when our groups are weak, we support and nurture them by lifting their spirits and encouraging them to rise from weakness. We tell them that the only way to make their lives count is to become rich and successful." So this is the story of Danny Hartoyo. You can read it in more detail in the Networking Times. This is where he used to live with his in-laws. And here is his current home. He's very, very proud of it. Okay, so I asked him, now that you have changed really social classes, who do you prospect? And so do you prospect middle class people or rich people who are easier and who can more easily afford it? He says, no, I prospect the people, the milieu where I come from, because the richer people are too skeptical. And of course, he needs to work with a lot of people to find one that's, like he said, is ripe for the business. But his prospects are street vendors. Just as you can see, these are the pictures he sent me. These are his prospects. So that was economic opportunity. And now our second factor is network marketing is a business that empowers women. And why is that important in the global scheme of things? Well, when we empower women, women are the primary caretakers. They pass it on to the children, and so we have leverage, and so we affect an entire generation, right? I need to put that down. All right, so every year we dedicated an entire issue of Networking Times to women because it's a very important market. Well, some consider women a niche market, but after all, we're more than half, just slightly more than half of the world population. Not only that, since 2009, women own more than half of the wealth in the world. Now, I'm not just saying this out of the blue. I get this from a book that I highly recommend. It's written by a demographer. It's based on research and facts. Her name is Maddie Deichwald. Perhaps you know her husband, Ken Deichwald, who is a famous demographer as well. The book is called Influence: How Women's Soaring Economic Power Will Transform Our World for the Better. And she goes into why that is, because when women have extra money, they spend it differently than men do. Men will invest in things more, and women invest more in people and relationships. They'll take care of their families and education and community, etc. So that changes everything. So Maddie Deichwald calls this shift, where women have reached a status of influence, she calls this the biggest shift of the 21st century. And it's really interesting to go into that interview if you're a subscriber, because you will see how network marketing fits perfectly into that trend, of course. So the good news is women own more than half of the, women have equality in wealth-wise now, but there's a paradox. Most poor people in the world are women, and they are mostly single moms. And the causes of that are complex. But one of the causes is that in a lot of developing countries, women are still very much oppressed due to cultural and political and religious dictates. And a book that I highly recommend on that topic is actually not just a book, it's a movement. And thank you, Sonia Stringer is the one who turned me on to it. It's called Half the Sky. The subtitle is Turning Oppression into Opportunity for Women Worldwide. It's written by two journalists who went to regions where women are oppressed and interviewed them. And they basically found out that the oppression of women takes three forms. The first form is sex trafficking and forced prostitution. The second one is gender-related violence, such as rape and honor killings. The third one is maternal mortality, meaning women dying in childbirth or being incredibly incapacitated due to lack of health care related to giving birth. So you may think that this is a depressing book, but actually it is not. Because what they show is that this problem that's huge, we actually have the solutions. It's not like an environmental problem or we need to find a cure for a disease. No, we have the solutions. All it needs is a change of mindset, change of priorities, and change of policies. And to put it in a historical perspective, they say the most important cause of the 19th century was the abolition of slavery. The most important cause of the 20th century was overcoming totalitarianism, like dictatorships and communism. And the most important cause of the 21st century is the empowerment of women and girls, young girls and women around the world. So that's basically, you can go online and read more about it. It's a fantastic movement. So one way, of course, to empower women is to give them economic power, because if they have financial independence, they can say no to whatever is not working. And of course, network marketing does an amazing job at that. Here you see Vijay Eswaran again. His company operates in Asian and African countries, and you see these women are extremely grateful for how the network marketing opportunity has changed their lives. And research also shows that when women are very entrepreneurial, And when we start a business, we have a good chance of success. For example, if you know of the microloan organizations such as Kiva, well, do you know, for example, that most of the people who take advantage of that are women, and 97% of them pay the loan back. So that means they actually succeed in their business. So we have all the skills. We are, well, of course, network marketing is ideal because it really runs on our feminine skills of relationship building and collaboration, empowering people, nurturing people, etc. So it's ideal. So let me illustrate with a story from India, how network marketing empowers women. So our friend Padma from India, she belonged to the lower middle class, and it was about, I think, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. She got married through an arranged marriage at age 16. Age 17, she had one son. Age 18, she had a second son. And due to all the financial pressure and all the stress, her marriage fell apart. At age 22, she found herself single mom with 2 little boys. She was entrepreneurial, and so she decided to open a little beauty salon. She had to borrow money from family to get it started, lots of overhead. Interest rates were high. She was in debt. She did it for 10 years. In the meantime, she gets introduced to network marketing now and then. Cosmetics companies come and visit her salon. And she figures out there's a lot of hype in the business, so she's really reluctant. But she does believe in the concept of residual income. And one day, she connects with a person with an upline who has his company's based in Malaysia, and she's a little bit skeptical, but she signs up. Didn't take it too seriously in the beginning because she figures, how can this be a business? I only invested like $150 after everything I invested in my traditional business, and that isn't even working. But her upline is very persistent and works with her every day, calls her every day, and tells her, you just bring over people, I do the presentation, you just bring people and follow up. So she does that. She brings in a few people. Her friends start seeing her check. They start to become interested too. And she duplicates exactly what her upline does. She works with the person until the person becomes successful. Fast forward 10 years later, she today has 300,000 people in her organization, and she herself only signed up and trained 30 people. Can you imagine 30 to 300,000? Let me read you a little excerpt of her story. She says, I quickly understood that training and motivating my existing team was much more important than accumulating signups. Whomever I brought in, I would immediately start working with them and under them until they were seeing results. Today, 80% of my leaders are extremely successful. Initially, Padma used her upline's training system, but later she started making her own CDs in different Indian languages and sold them for $1. Today, she and her leaders organize big training events all over India, which often attract several 100,000 attendees. Although Padma's organization is gender balanced, she has a pronounced passion for encouraging women to rise above their circumstances and create a better life for their families. I believe in the power of women because once a lady commits herself, she can do wonders, she says. This is because we are mentally strong and balanced. A woman can play the mother's role and the father's role, which is very useful for building a team. Men have too many choices in our society. They are continuously drawn in different directions. But when a lady believes in something, she will stick to that. Helping women gives me a lot of joy. One of my dreams was to become one of the highest female taxpayers on the Indian continent. And last year, I actually realized that dream. I received several letters of appreciation from commissioners of the income tax department congratulating me for my contribution. I like to pay a lot of taxes because I want to help my country and prove that women can accomplish a great deal. My goal is to build exposure for the network marketing profession and show what women can do. I tell them, if I can do it, all of you can. Even during big conferences with thousands of people, Padma does a lot of counseling with the women on personal topics such as the management of their homes, She says, I teach women how to behave in order to be more appreciated by their husbands and how to convince them to be supportive of the business. I encourage them to keep building until they experience some financial results, and only then should they introduce the business to their husbands. I teach them how to manage their time and become more disciplined. For example, I tell them to hire a servant to do grocery shopping, cooking, washing dishes, and doing laundry. A businesswoman cannot afford spending time on housekeeping tasks. Okay, and for this next part, I need to show you the picture. Okay, so here is her training. Her group is called Ocean because it's so big, she calls it Ocean. Training outdoors. Okay, she says, so she bought this. I live in a house nobody else could buy. I feel so proud because a lot of big shots came to see the estate, but they couldn't show enough taxable income to qualify for the purchase. Being a network marketer, I proved my annual income by how much taxes I paid, and I've been living in this palace ever since. By empowering women, we also influence the next generation, she says, because mothers teach their children. If you ask, she says, this is already happening with my leaders, if you ask their children about what they want to do when they grow up, they say, we want to become professional networkers like Auntie Padma. So she's very, very proud of her palace, which has a staff of 10. And she starts every training with a meditation. So here they are, getting ready for the day. So that's Padma. I could tell you stories. I'm a little bit pressed with time, but there's stories about Russia. This is Joe Garcia, and his organization is 95% women. Ex-communist countries, in those countries, women are extremely motivated and by entrepreneurial opportunities. Same in Turkey, where the social, the culture is that men don't like that their wives work out of the house because they're afraid they're going to neglect their homes and their children. But network marketing, of course, they can do from their homes around that schedule. So it's really bringing social change there. Women have never had financial independence in these countries. Of course, it makes a big difference in the Arab world. There's tons of stories about that also in Networking Times. So. Very touching story. So our third factor here, I said, is we have a business that provides entrepreneurship education. Now, why is that important? Well, it was the main topic at the World Economic Forum at Davos, Switzerland. Anyone knows about that event? It was at the end of January. So the big slogan this year was, to grow the global economy, we have to provide entrepreneurship education to all youth. And the reason is that our society has changed. Well, and entrepreneurship, I don't know about you, but we didn't really learn this in school, right? Our schools prepared us for the industrial economy. So we learned how to fit in and follow a system and not challenge authority. And then, so we do what we're asked to do, and then we expect to be sustained by the system, right? Well, this is not working anymore. So entrepreneurship education, we have to unlearn a lot of things, and we learn to think outside the box. We have to learn how to self-promote. So this doesn't come very easily. So they're kind of scratching their head, the economists, like, how are we going to teach people this since our schools aren't doing it? So here's a statement from a white paper that I researched from the World Economic Forum that says, preparing youth to face the new global economy will mean nurturing them to think differently and to acquire perspectives and habits they will need to succeed professionally and personally. So they understand it's one whole. Whether they own a business or work for one, they will need to acquire an entrepreneurial mindset. This is company owners who are saying this. Okay, so they're understanding that not enough jobs, and even people who do have jobs will need to become entrepreneurial. So here we have, okay, what does that mean, entrepreneurial mindset? In that same white paper, I put down I copied for you the traits that they see are necessary to teach people. Well, let's take a look at these traits, okay? Problem solving, collaboration, learning to work with technologies, to be flexible, to be self-starter, to be accountable, leadership, being results-oriented, being comfortable with taking risks, persistence through failure, being a lifelong student. Who is going to teach people this? Isn't that exactly what we teach our teams? So the world needs us. A story to exemplify that is the story of Asha Krishnan. She is born in Nairobi, Kenya, in a family that a family of 7 that lived with less than $1 a day. So I'm going to read a little part of her story. So Asha grew up in a single-parent household, surviving on less than $1 a day. In our family, education was not considered a priority for girls. When I finished grade school, my mom couldn't afford to let me continue, so I never went to middle school or high school. It was customary to give priority to the boys. So in order to let my brothers continue their education, my mom took me out of school and sent me to work. In a culture where girls could be married at an early age, the idea was that I did not need an education because I could start raising a family. At age 14, I managed to get a job selling in a shop by wearing high heels to look older. I spent my teenage years moving from job to job while my mom was trying to survive to make a living as a hotel maid. I thought the only way out of the hassles of working was to get married. When I was 17, I found a man who was willing to help me with my responsibility of taking care of my brother's school fees. Despite the fact that the man was more than twice my age, we got married and started a family. I resigned myself to becoming a housewife because I didn't have the qualifications to get a decent job. Feeling unfulfilled, I put on a lot of weight. This was a total surprise to me, but she explained to me that this is very common in countries where when people get themselves out of extreme poverty, what happens to them now that they have enough to eat, they get terrible weight problems. So she was smart and entrepreneurial, and she went to the library, educated herself, went online, and learned about how to lose the weight. She lost the weight and then became a fitness instructor. But still, it was her hourly wage. She didn't make much money, but she was able to give her daughters an education. But one day, she was introduced by a friend of a friend to a network marketing opportunity. It was a company that had different product lines, and so to do the friend a favor, she signed up for a telecommunications service because her daughters were studying in other countries. She thought she would save money that way. So she signed up, and was very supported by her upline, started working with him, and became quite successful at the business. And what she's most grateful for is all the free education she received from people who had a vested interest in her success. And she noticed a problem. There's a big problem in Africa with unemployment. And especially young people, they're making progress with education. People are getting more and more degrees, but there are no jobs. So tapping into that entrepreneurial education aspect of the business, she developed a training program that she markets on university campuses. So she puts out flyers and people spread the word. So she gives a workshop on how to become an entrepreneur, how to run a business, how to start a home business. At the end, she says, well, a good business model for that is network marketing, and there are many companies. And I'm actually involved in one of these companies, and if you're interested in that, you can come to the next part. Well, she has a 90% turnover rate. So people who take this entrepreneurship education then roll over into her pay plan. So that's, she explained to me the numbers are such that in Africa, by the year 2020, she says, there will be 500 million youths with degrees and no jobs. She told me that the Arab Spring is nothing. This is the real time bomb we are sitting on. So you can imagine how extremely motivated she is to grow her business and offer that opportunity to help people out of poverty. So that's the story of Asha. That's a few pictures of her story. So that's her family. So grandma and brothers and sisters. And here she is teaching at the university, teaching the course on entrepreneurship. Oh, and she signed up an official from the United Nations who was so impressed with the work she was doing that he joined her team and gives her visibility, and he supports some people on her team by buying tickets to send them to the company event, etc. So she has a lot of visibility through that as well. And of course, she supports a lot of charities. So if you're a network marketer, remember that you are in a business that provides entrepreneurship education in regions that provides economic opportunity in regions where there is none, that empowers women, especially in regions where women are still very much oppressed, and that provides entrepreneurship education to people who may never have a job. All right? So that's precisely what we do at Networking Times as well. We provide entrepreneurship education. So if you ever become doubtful again, or you have someone on your team who needs to boost their confidence, send them over to Networking Times and have them read the story of Denny Hartoyo in Indonesia, or Padma from India, or Asha Krishnan from Kenya. And you will feel so proud and excited to be a network marketing professional for the difference you are making in the world. So here I have a couple of pictures with a couple of subscribers from these regions. This is another story. I really don't have time to tell that story, but this is the president of the Republic of Gabon holding a Networking Time. So if you're interested in that story, come to the booth. I want to end with a personal note, like I started. You know, some people ask me, do you ever get tempted to get into an opportunity yourself? And of course, I've thought about it, but then I think, well, then who would do what I do, right? So we all have to sing the song that only we can sing. And so at heart, I'm a writer and a philosopher. I like to ask the big questions. So what are we here for? What can I contribute? What is my role in the evolution of mankind? And everyone can sense that we're really living a shift. And the shift is humanity is accessing a higher state of freedom, right? And that's, tied into that is the global rise of entrepreneurship we are seeing. When I was 10 years old, I already felt more empowered to create my life than my parents had ever been. And that's because the most important message of our time, they didn't know. That message is, Carlos talked about that, we create our reality with our dreams. With our thoughts and our beliefs, right? So that's incredibly liberating, but it's also a tremendous responsibility. Well, I believe you and I are part of this shift, and network marketing is our playground. And that's really the perspective in which I see my work, and I invite you to do the same. Now, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. So I believe we are all born to be free, and so let's go out and tell the world. Thank you so much.
You are awesome.
I finished on the...
You did. I love you.
On the
You're great. Guys, don't you have a bigger global perspective and understanding what our profession is doing and the difference we're making? We're not just moving a few products, we are truly making a difference in the world. Josephine Gross, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. A few of you asked me an interesting question. How come I speak with Josephine probably a couple of times a day? And the reason is, guys, three things. Number one, myself and Sylvia have the pleasure, and I mean it's an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure, with Jackie Ulmer, who's also in the room here today, to be on the editorial board for Networking Times. So we get the opportunity to read the books, to read all the interviews, to do those interviews and be part of that co-collaboration with Chris and Josephine Gross. And I know the sheer huge amount of work that they do into putting this in and creating this for you, truly, it is absolutely amazing. The second reason is with networking time, so many of the faculty that you have here is because of relationships we have with them and because of Networking University. So we're so grateful for that. And third, she's a writer and an editor. So myself and Sylvia are working together with Chris and Josephine in writing a new book that we're going to talk about it later. But we also, that's part of the reason we spend so much time together. So Josephine, we're in your debt. Chris, we're in your debt. And thank you very much for all that you guys do for our profession.